I fed one tempting fox girl, leading her passionate clan to cling to my side. The meal that bound two souls. The forest border always smelled of pine and possibility, which was why Kieran Ashwood made camp there most evenings. His wagon, filled with jars of spices from distant markets, creaked gently as he arranged stones for his cooking fire. 32 years of wandering had taught him that home was less about walls and more about the ritual of preparing a meal under open sky. The snap of a twig made him pause, ladle halfway to the pot. His eyes, the color of worn leather, scanned the darkening tree line. Nothing. Then, a flash of silver, low to the ground. I mean no harm, he called softly, returning to his stirring. But if you're hungry, there's plenty. Silence answered, thick and wary. Kieran had learned patience from merchants who spoke 12 languages and from mountains that took weeks to cross. He simply continued cooking, humming an old trading song as fragrant steam rose from his pot. Root vegetables with cardamom, black pepper, and a touch of wild thyme he'd gathered that morning. Minutes passed. Then, from behind a twisted oak, she emerged. Kieran's breath caught, though he kept his movements deliberately calm. The woman, if that word sufficed, moved with predatory grace despite obvious weakness. Fox ears, silver-tipped and pressed flat against her head, twitched with each sound. Amber eyes, too bright to be human, fixed on him with desperate hunger warring against instinct. Her clothing hung in tatters, and dirt streaked across skin that seemed to shimmer faintly in the firelight. "Celine," she whispered, the word barely audible. Her voice carried an accent he couldn't place, musical and slightly pitched. "My name is Celine Night Whisper." "Kieran." He ladled stew into his only spare bowl, rising slowly to avoid startling her. Each step forward made her tense, muscles coiled for flight, but he simply set the bowl on a flat stone between them before retreating. "It's hot. Be careful." Her gaze darted from the food to his face, searching for deception. Whatever she found there, or didn't find, made her shoulders sag with exhaustion. Trembling fingers reached out, hesitated, then lifted the bowl. The moment she accepted it, something shifted in her expression. Shock, followed by what looked like panic, flickered across her features. But hunger won. She drank deeply, gasping between swallows, tears streaming down her cheeks. Kieran returned to his own meal, granting her the dignity of not watching too closely. Only when she'd finished, bowl licked clean, did he speak again. "There's more, if you want it." Celine stared at him with those impossible amber eyes, something profound and troubled swimming in their depths. "Do you know what you've done?" He blinked. "Fed someone who needed feeding." "Among my people," she said slowly, "to accept food from another's hand is—" She struggled for words. "It's not casual. It's trust. It's gratitude that goes deeper than words. You've offered, and I've accepted, and now—" "Now you're less hungry," Kieran interrupted gently, offering a slight smile. "And that's enough for me." But Celine shook her head, clutching the empty bowl like a lifeline. "You don't understand. Among the fox folk, this is—" A gust of wind carried her scent to him, wild berries and autumn leaves, and Kieran felt something stir in his chest that had nothing to do with magic or tradition. Just the simple recognition of someone who, like him, knew what it meant to be far from home. "Stay," he said. "At least for tonight. Whatever this means to your people, to me it just means you shouldn't sleep hungry in the forest." Celine's eyes widened, and for the first time, her ears lifted slightly from their flattened position. Something like warmth, or was it longing, crossed her face before she carefully schooled her expression back to neutrality. But she stayed. And as the fire crackled between them, neither noticed how naturally the silence settled, comfortable as an old coat. "When the clan comes calling." 3 days passed before Kieran understood that Celine's acceptance had consequences beyond a shared meal. He'd been grinding cinnamon bark when the first visitor arrived, a foxwoman with russet fur streaking through her dark hair and eyes like polished copper. She materialized from the tree line with unsettling silence, arms crossed, studying him with predatory focus. "So you're the human who fed my sister," she said without preamble. Her voice carried an edge that suggested she'd used it to give orders. "I am Rana Night Whisper." Kieran set down his mortar slowly, keeping his hands visible. Kieran Ashwood. Your sister mentioned family, but she left yesterday morning. I assumed. She returned to tell us about you. Rana circled his camp with deliberate steps, examining his spice jars, his bedroll, the careful organization of his merchant's life. A human who shares food without asking for payment or favor. Unusual. Not really. Just practical. He gestured to his wagon. I'm a trader. Good relations mean good business. Rana's laugh held no humor. And what business do you conduct with starving foxfolk in the wilderness? Before Kieran could answer, another figure emerged, this one an elderly man with white fur frosting his temples and a walking staff carved with intricate symbols. His movements carried the careful dignity of age, but his eyes held sharp intelligence. Rana, your hostility serves no purpose. The elder's voice rumbled like distant thunder. I am Torvin Greymuzzle, and I've come to see this human who unknowingly performed our oldest bonding ritual. Kieran's stomach tightened. Bonding ritual. When Celine accepted food from your hand, she acknowledged debt deeper than coin. Torvin settled onto a fallen log with a satisfied grunt. Among foxfolk, such acceptance creates ties of loyalty and protection. She is now honor-bound to your well-being. That's, Kieran ran fingers through his hair, frustration building. I just fed someone who was hungry. I don't want anyone bound to me. Too late, said a cheerful voice from above. Kieran looked up to find a younger foxman lounging in a tree branch, grinning with mischief dancing in his golden eyes. His fur bore auburn highlights that caught the afternoon sun, and he swung down with acrobatic ease. I'm Lixon Swifttail, Celine's cousin, and I've been watching you for 2 days. He landed in a crouch, then straightened, circling Kieran with open curiosity. You cook every evening at sunset, share your water with birds, and talk to your horse like he understands philosophy. You're either very kind or very lonely. Both, Kieran admitted, surprising himself with the honesty. Look, I appreciate that your culture has traditions, but I don't need. What you need is irrelevant, Rana cut in, but her tone had softened fractionally. Celine has claimed you under her protection, which means the Night Whisper clan must evaluate whether you're worthy of such devotion. By standing around my camp intimidating me. Lixon laughed, genuine and bright. No, by testing you. Answer this riddle. I have cities but no houses, forests but no trees, and water but no fish. What am I? Kieran blinked at the sudden shift. A map. Correct. Lixon clapped his hands. See, Rana. He's quick. I like him. Torvin nodded slowly. Intelligence is valuable. But tell me, Kieran Ashwood, what do you fear most? The question landed like a stone in still water. Kieran met the elder's gaze, recognizing the test for what it was. Dying without having mattered. Moving through the world without leaving it better than I found it. Silence held the clearing. Even Rana's suspicious expression faltered. An honest answer, Torvin murmured. And a lonely one. More foxfolk began appearing over the following days, some curious, some skeptical, all testing him in ways both obvious and subtle. They challenged him to cooking contests, asked impossible riddles, debated philosophy by firelight. Kieran met each encounter with patience and genuine interest, sharing his spices, his stories, his laughter. And slowly, remarkably, they began to stay. Rana constructed a shelter at the clearing's edge, claiming she needed to monitor him. Lixon appointed himself official taste tester of Kieran's experiments with wild herbs. Torvin spent evenings teaching him foxfolk history, filling the loneliness that had haunted Kieran's travels with something approaching companionship. But Celine remained absent, and Kieran found himself scanning the tree line more often than he cared to admit, wondering why the woman who'd started all this kept her distance. On the 8th night, as Kieran prepared roasted fish with lemon and dill, Rana approached his fire. She's afraid, the foxwoman said quietly, her usual sharpness absent. Celine feels what's growing in her heart, and it terrifies her. Our people have been hunted, exiled, forced to hide our true nature. To care for someone outside the clan, especially a human. She trailed off, staring into the flames. It's considered dangerous. Foolish. And what do you think? Kieran asked. Rana's copper eyes found his. I think you're the first person in 50 years who's looked at us and seen people instead of monsters or myths. I think my sister chose well, even if she doesn't yet understand what she's chosen. That night, Kieran lay awake in his bedroll, surrounded by the soft sounds of foxfolk sleeping in shelters they'd built around his camp. For the first time in 3 decades, his wandering felt less like running and more like searching, and perhaps, impossibly, like finding. The fire that warms 2 hearts. Celine returned during the autumn equinox celebration, when the clan had transformed Kieran's modest camp into something magical with paper lanterns and flower garlands. Kieran noticed her immediately despite the crowd. She stood at the clearing's edge, wearing a dress of deep blue that complemented her silver-tipped fur, her amber eyes finding him across the firelight with magnetic intensity. His heart performed an acrobatic feat that would have impressed Lixon. "You came," he said when she finally approached, unable to keep the warmth from his voice. "I've been watching from the forest." Celine's confession came softly. "Seeing my clan build homes around you, hearing their laughter. You've done what I couldn't, made them feel safe enough to stop running." Kieran wanted to reach for her hand but restrained himself. "They did that themselves. I just cooked dinner." "You did more than that." Her voice carried weight, emotion barely contained. "You saw us. You see me." She gestured to the celebration, Lixon dancing with exaggerated flair, Rana actually smiling as she shared wine with Torvin, families gathered in contentment. "This is what I wanted for them. What I couldn't give them alone." "Celine. Walk with me." She extended her hand, and Kieran took it without hesitation, letting her lead him away from the firelight toward the river that bordered the clearing. The moon painted silver paths across the water's surface. They walked in charged silence until Celine stopped at a flat rock overlooking the gentle current, settling with graceful ease. Kieran joined her, acutely aware of the warmth radiating from her body. "Among my people," Celine began, voice barely above a whisper, "choosing a mate outside the clan is considered betrayal. Our survival has always depended on unity, on putting the family before individual desire." She turned to face him fully, moonlight catching tears on her cheeks. "But when I'm near you, Kieran, I feel something I've never felt before, like I'm allowed to want something just for myself." Kieran's breath caught. "What do you want?" Instead of answering with words, Celine leaned closer. Her hand rose to his cheek, fingers trembling, and Kieran covered it with his own, steadying her. "You're afraid," he observed gently. "Terrified," she admitted. "Of choosing wrong. Of wanting too much. Of discovering this feeling isn't real. Then let me tell you what I know is real." Kieran shifted closer, his free hand finding the small of her back. "Every day since you left, I've looked for you in the trees. Every meal I've cooked has been seasoned with the hope you'd return. I've traveled for 32 years without belonging anywhere, and then you collapsed beside my fire and suddenly," his voice roughened with emotion, "suddenly I understood what home could mean." Celine's eyes widened, vulnerability and longing warring in their amber depths. "Kieran." He cupped her face with both hands now, thumbs gently brushing away her tears. "I don't know your customs or traditions. I only know that when I'm with you, the wandering stops feeling necessary and starts feeling like what I was doing until I found you." The kiss, when it came, tasted of honey wine and salt tears and possibility. Celine made a small sound against his mouth, surprise melting into hunger as she pressed closer. Her fingers tangled in his hair, and Kieran's arms encircled her waist, pulling her against him as the kiss deepened. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Celine rested her forehead against his. "The clan will have questions," she whispered. "Let them ask." Kieran traced the delicate edge of her fox ear with one finger, marveling when it flickered at his touch. "I'm not afraid of questions. And if they demand I choose between duty and desire, then I'll remind them that duty without joy is just another kind of exile." He tilted her chin up, meeting her gaze with steady certainty. "And that maybe, just maybe, choosing to be happy isn't betrayal, it's the bravest thing any of us can do." Celine's laugh broke on a sob, and then she was kissing him again, urgent and claiming. They sank onto the smooth rock, the river's song providing gentle soundtrack as Kieran explored the fascinating texture where soft fur met softer skin along her neck. Celine arched into his touch, gasping when his lips found the sensitive spot behind her ear. "Kieran," she breathed, his name a prayer and plea combined. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "Tell me what you want." "You," she said simply, fiercely. "All of you, for however long we have." So he gave her what she asked for, tender exploration that became passionate claiming, gentle touches that discovered what made her sigh and what made her cry out. Under the moon's blessing, they learned each other's bodies with reverent attention, Celine's fox-like grace meeting Kieran's human patience in a dance as old as desire itself. Later, wrapped in Kieran's cloak with her head on his chest, Celine traced idle patterns on his skin. "When I accepted your food," she murmured, "I bound myself to your fate. But now I want to bind you to mine. Not through tradition, but through choice." Kieran pressed a kiss to her temple. "Haven't I already chosen?" "Not officially." She sat up, reaching into a hidden pocket of her dress to produce 2 ribbons, one silver, one deep blue. In foxfolk tradition, lovers exchange binding ribbons. They're worn until the relationship ends or until. She hesitated, vulnerability flickering across her features. "Until," he prompted gently. "Until death," she finished quietly. "It's a promise not just of love, but of standing together against whatever comes. Of building something worth protecting." Kieran took the silver ribbon, tying it carefully around her wrist before offering his own for the blue. Their eyes met and held as Celine knotted the fabric, her fingers lingering on his pulse point. "Whatever comes," he agreed, "we face it together." The river sang on, and somewhere in the distance, celebration continued. But here, in their moonlit sanctuary, 2 souls who'd been wandering alone finally found their destination in each other's arms. When shadows threaten the found home. The hunters arrived on a morning that had begun with promise, Kieran teaching Lixen how to properly roast coffee beans while Celine braided flowers into Rana's hair, the clan finally at ease in their newfound sanctuary. Then the arrows came. "Everyone down!" Rana's command cracked through the air as a projectile embedded itself in Kieran's wagon, inches from where he'd been standing. The foxfolk scattered with practiced efficiency, parents shielding children, warriors forming protective circles. Kieran grabbed Celine's hand, pulling her behind his wagon as more arrows whistled past. His heart hammered against his ribs, not from fear for himself, but from the sudden understanding that this peace he'd helped build was fragile as morning frost. "The Ironpaw clan," Torvin growled, emerging from his shelter with surprising speed despite his age. His usual calm had hardened into something dangerous. "They've been hunting our territory for 2 generations." A figure stepped from the tree line, a massive foxman with steel-grey fur and eyes like chips of ice. Behind him, at least 30 warriors formed ranks, each armed and radiating hostile intent. "Night Whisper," the leader called, his voice carrying brutal authority. "I am Draken Ironpaw. This forest belongs to my clan by right of strength. You have 3 choices: submit to our rule, fight and die, or run like you always do." Rana's growl was pure fury. "We've run for 50 years, Draken. Every time we find peace, your kind drives us out. When does it end?" "When you accept your place." Draken's smile was all teeth, no warmth. "Weak clans serve strong ones. That's nature's law." Kieran felt Celine trembling beside him, not with fear, he realized, but with barely contained rage. Her fingers dug into his arm hard enough to bruise. "We should go," Lixen said quietly, appearing at their side with uncharacteristic seriousness. "Gather what we can carry and disappear before nightfall. We've done it before." "No." The word escaped Kieran before he'd fully formed the thought. Every eye turned to him, foxfolk and human alike, and he straightened under their scrutiny. "Running isn't the answer anymore." "Kieran," Celine whispered urgently, "you don't understand what they're capable of." "I understand that you deserve better." He stepped forward, ignoring her attempt to hold him back, moving into the open space between the 2 clans. His merchant's instincts, honed through decades of negotiating with stubborn traders and territorial merchants, rose to meet the moment. "Draken Ironpaw," he called, voice steady despite his racing pulse. I'm Kieran Ashwood, and I speak for the Night Whisper clan. Draken's laugh boomed across the clearing. A human speaks for foxfolk? This is what you've become, Torvin? So desperate you hide behind prey. I'm a merchant, Kieran continued, undeterred. I've traded with every village within 50 miles of this forest. I know the baker in Millhaven who supplies the garrison. I know the blacksmith in Riverside who shoes the mayor's horses. I know the herbalist in Thornwood who treats the landowner's wife. He let that sink in, watching calculation replace mockery in Draken's expression. And they all know me as honest, fair, and reliable. So. Draken's tone remained dismissive, but his posture had shifted, alert now, wary. So if you attack this clan, you attack my trading partners. My friends. Kieran's voice hardened. And I will call in every favor, every friendship, every good relationship I've built over 3 decades. The villages will know that foxfolk aren't the threat, you are. You'll find your own hunting grounds surrounded by humans who've decided that maybe the Ironpaw clan is the problem that needs solving. Silence crashed over the clearing like a physical force. You're bluffing, Draken said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. Am I? Kieran pulled a worn leather journal from his pocket, his merchant's ledger, filled with names and transactions and connections. Last month, I helped Millhaven's baker source rare vanilla. 2 weeks ago, I found medicine for Riverside's blacksmith's daughter. Yesterday, I sent honey to Thornwood's herbalist for her arthritis. He met Draken's gaze without flinching. Test me. Attack this clan and discover how quickly a wandering merchant can turn an entire region against you. Draken's warriors shifted uneasily. Even they could calculate the mathematics of survival. Strength meant nothing against starvation and isolation. Besides, Kieran continued, his voice softening slightly, what do you actually win here? Territory you'll have to defend constantly? Resources that will dry up once humans stop trading with you? Fear that will eventually turn to organized resistance? He gestured to the Night Whisper clan behind him. Or you could leave them in peace, and I'll make sure my trading routes include your territory. Fair prices, reliable goods, and a reputation as reasonable instead of brutal. The calculation in Draken's eyes was visible, pride warring with pragmatism, violence wrestling with survival instinct. You would trade with us? Draken asked finally, suspicion heavy in every word. After we came here threatening war. I would trade with anyone willing to deal fairly, Kieran replied. That's what merchants do. We build bridges instead of burning them. Torvin stepped forward, his presence lending weight to Kieran's words. The human speaks truth. We've built something here, not through conquest, but through connection. Join us in peace, or leave us in it. But understand that if you choose violence, you choose isolation. The standoff stretched, tension thick enough to choke on. Celine's hand found Kieran's, squeezing hard enough to hurt, and he squeezed back, a promise that whatever came next, they'd face it together. Finally, Draken lowered his weapon. 1 season, he growled. Prove your trade routes benefit us, and we'll leave Night Whisper territory alone. His ice-chip eyes locked on Kieran. But if you fail, human, we'll remember this insult. I don't fail, Kieran said simply, and meant it. The Ironpaw clan withdrew like shadows, leaving behind only disturbed earth and the memory of violence averted. The moment they disappeared, Celine pulled Kieran into her arms, burying her face against his neck. You magnificent fool, she whispered, voice breaking. You could have died. But I didn't. He held her tightly, feeling the tremors running through her body. And neither did anyone else. Rana approached, her copper eyes suspiciously bright. You turned a battle into a business negotiation. It's what I know, Kieran admitted. Besides, fighting might have solved today's problem, but it wouldn't have prevented tomorrow's. This way. He gestured to the clan gathering around them, relief and wonder mixing on every face. This way, maybe we start building something lasting. Lixon clapped him on the shoulder, grinning through his own unshed tears. I take back every doubt I had about humans. You're absolutely insane and completely brilliant. But it was Torvin's assessment that struck deepest. The elder placed one weathered hand on Kieran's head in blessing, his voice carrying the weight of prophecy. You have done what no warrior could, transformed threat into opportunity, violence into connection. You've shown us that home isn't found or conquered. It's negotiated, one honest relationship at a time. That evening, as the clan celebrated their unexpected victory, Kieran sat with Celine by their river, watching moonlight paint familiar patterns on water. I've been thinking, Celine said quietly, her head resting on his shoulder. About what home means. About the difference between surviving and living. And? Kieran prompted, pressing a kiss to her temple. And I think I've been confusing duty with love for a very long time. She turned to face him, amber eyes luminous in the darkness. The clan has always been my purpose, my responsibility. But you've shown me that protecting them doesn't mean sacrificing myself. That maybe the best way to lead is by choosing joy and letting that choice inspire others. Your clan doesn't need you to be a martyr, Kieran agreed softly. They need you to be whole. Celine's smile was the sun breaking through storm clouds. Then help me learn how. Teach me to build instead of just protect. To create something that lasts beyond fear. We'll learn together, he promised, and sealed it with a kiss that tasted of hope and home and tomorrow. The choice that makes a family. 3 months after the Ironpaw confrontation, Kieran's camp had transformed into something resembling a small village. Foxfolk shelters interspersed with human-style buildings, gardens flourishing under Torvin's guidance, and a central pavilion where clan and visitors alike gathered for meals. The transformation wasn't just physical. Draken's clan had indeed benefited from Kieran's trade routes, and grudging respect had evolved into cautious cooperation. Other Foxfolk groups, hearing stories of the Night Whisper Sanctuary, began appearing at the forest's edge, refugees seeking the impossible dream of permanent home. But it was the morning Celine woke to find Kieran already dressed, his traveling pack prepared, that everything crystallized. "Where are you going?" she asked, heart suddenly in her throat. Kieran turned from the window, his expression gentle but resolute. "Mill Haven. The baker's daughter is getting married, and I promised to bring spices for the feast." "Oh." Celine tried to hide her relief, but he saw it anyway. "You thought I was leaving." He crossed to her, cupping her face with both hands. "Celine, I travel because it's my trade, not because I'm running. This," he gestured to the village beyond their shelter, "this is home now. You are home." "But you've been a wanderer for 30 years, she protested, old fears surfacing. "How do I know you won't wake up one day and realize you've traded freedom for responsibility?" Instead of answering immediately, Kieran reached for his merchant's pack, pulling out a small wooden box she'd never seen before. Inside, nestled in soft cloth, lay 2 intricately carved rings, one sized for his finger, one for hers. "I had these made in Riverside," he said quietly. "Foxfolk have their binding ribbons. Humans have rings. I wanted to honor both traditions." He slipped the smaller ring onto her finger, the wood smooth and warm against her skin, carved with tiny fox prints encircling a compass rose. "You're not a responsibility, Celine. You're my direction. The reason the compass points home." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she took the second ring, sliding it onto his finger with trembling hands. "You never cease to surprise me, Kieran Ashwood." "Good. I'd hate to become predictable." He kissed her softly, then deeper, until they were both breathless and laughing. "Come with me to Mill Haven. Let me show you the world beyond the forest, not as a refugee, but as my partner." So they went, and Celine discovered that Kieran's reputation was no exaggeration. Everywhere they traveled, people greeted him warmly, and when he introduced her, not as Foxfolk or other, but simply as Celine, his beloved, they extended that same warmth to her. In Mill Haven, the baker's daughter requested Celine's help with flower arrangements, chatting easily about love and marriage and futures built on trust. In Riverside, children asked if her fox ears could hear better than theirs, their curiosity innocent rather than threatening. In Thornwood, the herbalist shared recipes with her, 2 women talking shop while Kieran negotiated grain prices. "This is what you've been building," Celine murmured one evening as they camped between villages. "Not just trade routes, but understanding. Connection." "It's what we're building now," Kieran corrected, pulling her close beneath their shared blanket. You and me and everyone brave enough to choose community over isolation. When they returned to the village, they found it buzzing with excitement. Rana met them at the border, practically vibrating with energy. 3 more foxfolk families arrived while you were gone, she announced. And 2 human families from a village that burned down last winter, asking if they could settle here. Torvin's been negotiating with them, but we wanted to wait for you both before deciding. Celine and Kieran exchanged glances, an entire conversation passing in that look. Gather everyone at the pavilion, Celine said, straightening her shoulders with new confidence. All of them, foxfolk, humans, whoever wants to be part of this. It's time we made some decisions as a community. An hour later, the pavilion overflowed with people. Celine stood before them, Kieran at her side, their fingers intertwined. For 50 years, my clan has run, Celine began, her voice carrying to every corner. We fled from violence, from prejudice, from the fear of being seen. We survived, but we didn't live. She squeezed Kieran's hand, drawing strength. Then a wandering merchant offered a hungry fox girl a bowl of stew, asking nothing in return, and everything changed. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Kieran taught all of us, that home isn't a place you find. It's not something you're born into or claim through strength. She met the eyes of her clan, the refugees, the humans who'd asked for shelter. Home is what you build together, one meal at a time, one honest conversation at a time, one choice to stay instead of run. Torvin rose from his seat, ancient and dignified. Celine Night Whisper speaks truth. This village has become more than sanctuary, it's become possibility. The question now is, do we formalize what we've created? Do we declare ourselves not just foxfolk or humans, but citizens of something new? I say yes, Rana called out immediately. I'm tired of being defined by what hunts me. I want to be defined by what I'm building. Yes, echoed Lixon, grinning. Besides, Kieran's cooking is too good to give up. One by one, voices joined, foxfolk and humans alike, choosing to stop being refugees and start being neighbors. When the last affirmation faded, Celine turned to Kieran. You started this with simple kindness, she said, loud enough for all to hear. You didn't conquer us or save us. You just saw us. Recognized our humanity when we'd almost forgotten it ourselves. Her voice softened, thick with emotion. You've given me permission to be more than duty, more than survival. You've taught me that choosing love isn't selfish, it's the foundation everything else is built on. Kieran pulled her close, kissing her forehead as applause erupted around them. You gave me the same gift, he murmured against her hair. A reason to stop wandering and start building. That night, as celebration stretched into the early hours, Kieran and Celine slipped away to their river sanctuary. Moonlight painted everything silver, and the water sang its endless song. I've been thinking about names, Celine said, nestled in Kieran's arms. For the village. We can't keep calling it the camp if it's becoming permanent. Any ideas? Kindling, she suggested. Because it started with a fire. Your fire, where you fed a starving fox girl and accidentally sparked something bigger than either of us imagined. Kieran smiled against her hair. Kindling. I like it. Small beginnings that become lasting warmth. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars reflect in dark water, each lost in thoughts of the impossible journey that had brought them here, from loneliness to belonging, from survival to living, from wandering to home. Kieran. Celine whispered. Thank you. For seeing me. For staying. For teaching me that duty and joy don't have to be enemies. He turned her in his arms, his gaze steady and sure. Thank you for letting yourself be seen. For choosing to stop running. For building this beautiful, impossible dream with me. Their kiss tasted of honey wine and hope, and when they finally pulled apart, both were smiling through tears. Above them, the moon blessed their union. Around them, their village, their kindling, settled into peaceful sleep. And within them, love continued its patient work, transforming fear into courage, strangers into family, and 2 wandering souls into the steady heartbeat of home.